Cardano's on the verge of a massive wave of financial adoption with the integration of the blockchain as well as RWA tokens and assets directly within the Nairobi Stock Exchange. This will be done in partnership with Empowa, who has a mission and a vision to provide affordable housing within emerging markets and countries such as Mozambique and Kenya. Now, focusing on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, they alone have had nearly $1 billion worth of trading volume taking place in 2023. As you could imagine, that provides a huge financial opportunity as well as exposure and integrations for Cardano moving forward. As a part of today's video, I'm sitting down with Greg Schneider, the COO at Empowa, to discuss this $1 trillion housing opportunity taking place right now in Africa, as well as their recent progress and partnerships dealing with contractors developing on the ground in those two countries. In addition, we discussed their Empowa Collateral NFTs, which recently sold out in just a couple of hours. And we close out today's video by discussing their Project Catalyst proposal. As always, if you guys do enjoy updates like these, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more content like this, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions for me as it pertains to Empowa or anything else going on in Cardano, then make sure to leave a comment down below. That said, enjoy today's interview. What's up, Ada Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. As a part of today's video, we're getting an update from Greg Schneider, the COO for Empowa, just regarding what they've been up to in the past couple of months. There's also a highly anticipated Project Catalyst proposal that I want to go ahead and raise to you guys' attention. Without any further ado, let me go ahead and bring up Greg, today's guest. Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Hey, yeah, it's good to be back and excited to provide the whole community with a bit of an update.
Yeah, thanks for your time. This is the weekend, and I'm sure there's plenty of other things that you could be doing right now, but you've decided to give some of that back to the community through this particular update. So I definitely appreciate that, and I'm sure the community does as well. Now, for anybody who's seeing you for the first time, I do want to just quickly point out that we have had you on the channel. It was about a 30 to 40-minute deep dive breaking down what Empowa does. For anybody who isn't aware, you guys are basically making housing more affordable within third world countries, starting off with Africa first. You guys have recently deployed in Mozambique as well as Kenya, but you're here, right? So instead of me trying to explain it, I'd love for you to just quickly give us a brief overview of what Empowa is, a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into a progress update and then talk a little bit more about your NFT sale, and then wrap up with the pretty big Project Catalyst proposal. So over to you for a brief overview of what Empowa is.
Sure. So as you touched on, we have a really great deep dive. So if anybody wants to go check that out, you get a much more detail about the project. But in short, Empowa, we're coming up to 3.5 years building on the Cardano ecosystem. We're a project that's looking to address the affordable housing challenges across emerging markets, but in particular the African continent. There's a backlog of around 50 million homes, which evidence suggests is a $1 trillion business opportunity, and we're trying to leverage blockchain technology to provide access to more affordable finance for people on the ground. So we work with local developers to provide a rent to own offering for tenants so they can move into climate resilient homes, live, with running water, ablution facilities, etc., pay a monthly rent each month, and ultimately contribute to the capital cost of the house ad hoc when they have access to additional capital, and ultimately pay off the home. And we've started with our pilot project in Mozambique, where we used a combination of catalyst funding and some funding raised through NFT sales to increase the home loan market by 5%. And now more recently, we're gearing up for launch in Kenya. So we're going to be doing a small pilot of 2 homes, which were funded by the official Cardano Summit NFT for last year. And then I'll get up to a much larger phase 2, which will be around 100 homes. And hopefully with the community support and our Catalyst proposal getting approved, some even bigger things planned for Kenya, but I'll touch on that in a minute.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into that conversation. Now, during our first call, we reviewed what is labeled as the Empowa Quarterly Report. As you just stated there, a big piece of that was surrounding Kenya. There's also the talk or the piece about the collateral NFT. And so I want to give you an opportunity, if you don't mind, just giving us a quick update, because I do see that there is a part 2 that's actually been released there as well with a few new partnerships. So do you mind, sort of highlighting what these partnerships are for, and then where sort of things have shifted towards since our last conversation?
Of course. So what we're trying to build at Empowa is an ecosystem to stimulate investment into the space. So that means identifying local developers who are able to supply the homes, working with funders who are have the capital to enable these rent-to-own contracts, and also building out the technology using Cardano and the blockchain in order to be able to track data in real time, manage payments, utilize smart contracts to make sure things run more efficiently. So there's quite a big component to the technology and the blockchain element of what we're doing. And one of the big considerations around within the technology is Empowa Pay. So that is a platform that we've built. It's live on mainnet, where our developer partners on the ground start to already record the data around their projects, both historic data as well as the ongoing payment data of their tenants. So one of the big developments in our kind of part 2 of our quarterly update was we crossed the $8.5 million of tracked property value within our portfolio. So that's, I think there's around 17 developers currently using Empowa Pay, tracking about 320 properties, a lot of them in South Africa, Mozambique's another big market, Nigeria, and Kenya is obviously going to start growing quite shortly. And this is really important because this is the data and on-chain data that we can use to stimulate investment into the affordable housing space. When we go to funders and we say, look, here are developers, here's the quality of the homes and the projects that they run in, would you like to support it? Having that data on hand and having it in a verified, transparent, publicly accessible way is critical to motivating them to deploy capital at a rate that makes this actually affordable. So that's just a little bit of that. If you look at our quarterly update, that's that first number, the $8.5 million. Some of the other big updates that we had since we last spoke was a partnership with Rail, which is a very large international fund of affordable housing. I think to date they've deployed about $49 million globally into affordable housing, and we're working with them on a number of different projects to start to think about where we can launch our next round of rent-to-own contracts. And we'll get into a minute with the collateral NFTs, but as we deploy more funding for on the ground rent-to-own contracts, that has a positive impact on our token and how much of that is locked up into smart contracts, etc. But we can obviously get into that in a second. Two other big updates: a report from 60 Decibels that will be released shortly. 60 Decibels is one of the industry leaders when it comes to measuring impact. We received some grant funding from Mercy Core Ventures about a year ago. We've now deployed that as part of rolling out Empowa Pay, and 60 Decibels was brought in as an independent third party to evaluate the work and the impact that we've had. They were on the ground, interviewing our tenants, understanding how our project's been running, really looking into kind of the nuts and bolts. And we've obviously seen a first draft of that report. We're really excited about the results that they found. And again, I think that adds a lot of credibility for us in the space to have a third party come in and audit what we've done and the impact we've made. And then the final one is a partnership with EY, but again, that ties in a little bit to our Catalyst proposal. So maybe I'll touch on that more when we get there.
Yeah, I mean, sounds like a lot of connections being made, taking advantage of a lot of people that are already trusted and on the ground in areas you guys are looking to expand. Now, you mentioned the collateral NFT, so let's maybe shift gears towards that, and then we'll close out here with the Project Catalyst proposal. Do you mind giving the community a brief update on the progress of the collateral NFT? But then could you also remind anybody who's hearing about it or just has forgotten about, what this serves in terms of a purpose and how this ties into Empowa as a whole?
Absolutely. So Empowa, when it comes to raising funding for our affordable housing and rent-to-own contracts, Those funds are typically secured from institutional investors who will buy a version of our NFT that represents their investment into the affordable housing space. One of the challenges we observed early on is that in order to secure that funding at a favorable rate, we needed to over-collateralize the loan. So whilst in other countries, maybe the property itself would be sufficient collateral, because we're talking about emerging markets, there is some anxiety around having the house as the sole collateral, typically because those markets aren't as liquid. If I go and put my Amsterdam apartment up for sale, I can almost be assured that in a week or two's time, the deal would have closed. Conversely, if I'm trying to sell an apartment in an emerging market or an affordable house in an emerging market, for a multitude of reasons, it can often be much more delayed. So in order to give any investors peace of mind, what we do is we collateralize an additional portion of the loan in our own token, in the Empowa EMP token. Now, typically, a developer will be responsible for purchasing that token on the open market, and in that way, and locking it up for the duration. So in that way, they have some skin in the game, and one can think of it as putting down a deposit to get a more favorable interest rate on your loan. We, of course, understand that some developers aren't going to have the capital on hand to be able to secure the required collateral or secure all of the required collateral. And so what we allow them to do is to make an application to our community and say, please, can I borrow or rent the EMP from you? And in return for borrowing and renting that EMP, I'm going to pay you a reward. And so typically the way that would work is we would sell an NFT in our own token. So the NFTs that were recently launched, there were two versions, one sold for 90 EMP, one sold for 900 EMP. And the agreement was that at the end of the year, that NFT would be sold back and the developer would buy it back for 100 or 1,000 EMP. And that additional margin of 10 EMP or 100 EMP was there to kind of compensate him for having borrowed the EMP for the duration of the year. In that way, our community can actually support local developers in delivering these affordable houses, because without that collateral component, they either wouldn't secure the funding or they wouldn't secure the funding at such a favorable rate, in which case the houses would no longer be so affordable. So we had our first NFT, collateral NFT sale, took place near the end of May. I think it was on May the 29th, to collateralize our homes in Mozambique and our first two homes in Kenya. We expect there to be decent levels of demand, so we did put in some limitations on how many NFTs any individual could buy. But yeah, we were blown away. Our NFTs sold out in the first 4 hours. It didn't even make it into round 2 of the sale, which I have no doubt left some in our community disappointed, and we are sorry about that. But the kind of silver lining is this first NFT sale was part of a larger due diligence process that we're going through for further investment. And so being able to go back to those individuals and say, there's huge appetite and huge demand for this approach, and securing the EMP as collateral is not going to be a challenge, has definitely helped to move those conversations forward. So whilst right now some people obviously missed out, I think we sold about 370,000 EMPs worth. So there's no doubt that there'll be future NFT sales that people can participate in, lock up their token, secure these returns and rewards, and yeah, know that they also support in affordable housing.
Yeah, I mean, congrats to you guys, right? I know specifically when it comes to NFTs, it's a very, very, very tricky topic, especially right now. Just to save both of our time, I'm not going to go into details. There's been a lot of drama in the NFT space. A lot of that is, PFP NFTs, or just NFTs that you're just sort of buying, to join in, just to be a part of a community with no expected return or no real world utility. Now, please don't take that the wrong way for the viewers if you're listening and you own NFTs. For me, I just realized in the past couple of months, there's been a shift towards NFTs. And if an NFT doesn't provide some sort of utility, there just doesn't seem to be a lot of traction around it. And so to see that, the Empowa NFTs obviously provide utility and that they're able to sell out prematurely, before you guys would have expected it. I think it's an extremely positive response. And as you've mentioned, even though some people may not have gotten in now, it at least shows that there is demand, and that moving forward, as you mentioned, there will be more opportunity. So for the community, if you guys want to find out more, I'll leave the links to everything that you guys are seeing on screen down below. But for you, Greg, I want to ask what's next. So you talked about the NFT sale, and then you talked about the buyback as well. Where do we currently stand with this first batch that was sold out?
Yeah, so we getting frequent updates from our developer on the ground, and we're expecting the first families to move into the homes in Kenya imminently. They're really doing the finishing touches. You saw, I think, in that you showed very briefly a picture of the development earlier, so you can see externally it was all complete. And when we were in Kenya a few weeks back, we obviously went to go visit the site. But now, they're doing the finishing touches and getting people ready to move in. So, hopefully even during the course of this month, or maybe in July, people will move in, and we'll be able to obviously share that update with the community. I think from our side, Kenya is a market that we're really focused on. There's a huge push locally by government to enable affordable housing there. In fact, in April, the Kenyan government implemented a 3% payroll tax. So everybody who earns a formal salary in Kenya now has 3% of it go towards an affordable housing fund. And that's obviously made a lot of local capital available for affordable housing, but it's also put a lot of pressure, politically and on all the players in Kenya to grow their affordable housing market. Because as you can imagine, whenever you tax somebody more, they generally aren't happy. But if you can then demonstrate that that extra 3% tax has really made on the ground impact, then you can quickly turn that sentiment. So because of that real core focus, especially in Kenya, around affordable housing and government buy-in, we've been focused quite heavily in that region, and that's part of the Catalyst proposal and some of the partnerships we've signed there. So not to push you, but maybe it's a good segue to talk to that.
You beat me to it, man. You beat me to it. So we've got obviously yourself, and then the CEO, excuse me, of Empowa, Glenn Jordan, sitting down and meeting with some of the members from the Nairobi Securities Exchange, or NSE for short. I mean, this is pretty impressive, right? Not only does this give you guys Empowa exposure, but since you guys are backing Cardano, I think this is an opportunity for Cardano to shine as well. So over to you. Can you maybe break down what your experience was like dealing with the NSE, but then also give us an overview of the Project Catalyst proposal, because I think this is dealing with tokenization of RWAs, which I think, again, is a narrative right now that a lot of people are focused on.
Yeah. So Frank Mwiti, who you can see highlighted in that picture up on screen now, is the new CEO of the Nairobi Securities Exchange. Nairobi is Africa's third largest economy, and the Securities Exchange, or stock exchange, is their main stock market. Frank is really bought into the ability of blockchain to be able to revolutionize some of the technology that they're using and to help support investment into the affordable housing space. The Nairobi Securities Exchange is a quasi-government organization. So when government mandates things like investment into affordable housing, it's something that they need to take very seriously. So we met with Frank and the team from EY, who would be a supplier in our Catalyst proposal, helping us with some of the local regulatory and financial considerations, and spoke about building a blockchain-based solution that would, start off just with an affordable housing product that they could launch into kind of almost a sandbox, but of course would be a solution built for other asset classes. Frank has bought in. He's excited to work with Empowa to build something, a solution, to help deliver on that. And of course, us being a Cardano-based project and having close ties to the Cardano ecosystem, we felt like this is a great opportunity to showcase what Cardano technology can do in a very real world use case. We're not talking here about a metaverse. We're not talking here about, a PFP NFT. We're talking about a real TradFi, securities exchange, looking at using blockchain technology to really roll out the next style of financial product. Of course, being able to work with the Nairobi Securities Exchange helps us with things like getting regulatory approval, making sure everything stays above board, and also helps us to crowd in investment into the affordable housing space, because whilst a big institution may be somewhat dubious about investing into, say, just an Empowa standalone product, as soon as it has the stamp of your local stock market, it opens up a number of different opportunities and doors. So for us, it's really exciting in being able to raise that institutional funding, which can then flow into financing more affordable homes and also tying up more of our token from that collateral requirement. But I think from a Cardano ecosystem perspective, it becomes this really positive use case of what Cardano technology can do. It opens up, I hope, a platform where other assets could be tokenized in maybe a similar way within the Nairobi's market. And hopefully it's also a showcase for other exchanges on the continent that can look at this project and say, we like what these guys are doing. We like the technology that's been built. How do we get something similar in a Uganda or Tanzania or a Mozambique or Nigeria, etc. So we're hoping it's a real showcase. So in order to really make it move forward and go ahead, we'll obviously need some support in terms of funding to get the development resource, the legal resource, all the different parties on board to execute on this product. And Catalyst is a great opportunity to do that. In fact, the timing was very appropriate that in Fund 12 there was this real world integration or I suppose stream. So the stars aligned and we thought, well, why not apply to Catalyst and see if we can get our funding in that way. And so we have a proposal in. That particular fund runs a little bit differently, so there's going to be a committee appointed by the Catalyst organization to evaluate all the proposals. So that should happen between the 6th, when submissions closed, to the 20th, where they'll vet that we actually have the existing relationship, that what we're proposing can actually be executed, etc. And then projects that make it through that level of scrutiny will then go to the community for a vote, where we hope the Cardano community will support us and see the value in this, both for Empowa, for affordable housing, but also to showcase Cardano's technology. And if we receive the funding, then let's get on a plane, go to Kenya and get things started, which is really, really exciting. So that's what we focus on. That's what's next. Very much the focus is getting this over the line and building something very, very real world using Cardano's technology.
Yeah, I mean, this is impactful. And again, for the viewers, I'll leave the links to everything that we're discussing down below, so you guys can obviously familiarize yourself with the Catalyst proposal, but then also with this brand new RWA category, right? Because as Greg mentioned, this is the first time that we've had a category like this where Cardano can have a major impact outside of the traditional Web3 space. And so again, I think this is a huge opportunity, not just for Empowa, but for the expansion of Cardano's horizons. And this is just one stock exchange. There's multiple stock exchanges across the globe. And if we're able to get a successful integration, again, not only would it benefit you guys, but I could also see more and more countries saying, hey, now we're actually taking a look at this. Now, I'm sure, Greg, you're pretty plugged into the ecosystem. We've just had a partnership between the Cardano Foundation and Entre Rios, a province in Argentina. And I think this is just the very, very beginning, or just the tip of the iceberg, and where we're going to start to see some of these bigger powers, bigger governments beginning to look at blockchain technology, and they're going to want something that's serious. Obviously, Cardano, I think, is the first candidate that comes to mind. And for the longest, it hasn't been that way. A lot of people have always doubted Cardano. They're like, man, there's no memes, there's no NFTs, there's none of this stuff. But what we have is security. What we have is sustainability. What we have is a perfect track record. And I think when we're going to be dealing with some of these bigger entities, they're going to be looking at those types of attributes, not necessarily some of the other attributes that other blockchains have taken advantage of internally, right? Again, it's one thing to pull in a crowd that's already hip to Web3, but it's a whole nother game to pull in a crowd that is outside of the space, trying to show them that, hey, there is a way to go about this that reduces risks, that allows for transparency and trust to really be built in the process altogether. So again, I think this is just a very small shift, and I'm excited to see exactly how you guys are able to leverage this partnership moving forward to benefit the Cardano community as a whole. And so, when it comes to this, how do you see this playing out? Let's say that you guys do get funding. How do you see this playing out from A to Z?
Yeah. So, initially, all the milestones and the proposal we've outlined in detail within our Catalyst proposal. So if anyone really wants to get into the kind of nuts and bolts, it's all there. Really for us, this is at most a 12-month project where the end goal is to have a working mainnet solution for the tokenization of real world assets and have at least one product, an offering, go to market with funds raised. That for us is success. That will be how we're judged on the funds being released to us from Catalyst. So, if we don't meet that, we don't get the funds. But most importantly for us, we want to make sure that a year from now, at the very latest, we as a Cardano ecosystem can hold up a product that was funded by local investors, most likely, or I suppose international investors if they want to invest in the Nairobi affordable housing market, with a working mainnet solution. Post that, we're confident that we can then release obviously more products to the market, depending on how much uptake there is. And we really hope that we can distill some of the information and disseminate some of the information to the broader Cardano ecosystem. Part of the deliverables we've put on our Catalyst proposal is to say we can't promise we can open source everything. That's obviously not realistic. There might be some stuff that's proprietary, or we're obviously working with local regulations and the local market, but where we can, we will open source it. But if we can't open source the actual code, we definitely want to open source the lessons, the thinking, the knowledge, being able to share that and keep track of it, and hopefully bring along other Cardano projects and other just general blockchain projects to list products within the solution that we build. So, maybe it's something for a telco, maybe it's something for somebody looking in the healthcare space, maybe it's people looking to tokenize precious metals, for example. For us, this is not a solution that is just going to be real estate exclusive. We are very understanding. I think the maximum amount that you can request from this particular fund is 2 million ADA. We don't quite need that much. We need about 1.8 million ADA. We've estimated, we've budgeted on to deliver on that. And we realize that is a significant amount of money. So we really want to make sure that for that we return maximum value, not only for Empowa's as a project and those who've supported us, but more importantly for the broader Cardano ecosystem. So we can't, I would say, be selfish and just focus on property, affordable housing, etc. We need to make something that has a better use case, or broader use case, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, again, as you said, not only does this benefit you guys, but also allows for other projects to get a piece of the pie. I'm thinking of, for example, projects like Twin, which are focusing on RWAs tokenizing different types of metals, right? They're actually going to be starting off with gold, then silver, then palladium, etc. But then there's also a group, I believe it's Finest Tokenize, which is being built by Endmaker, Fluid Tokens, and then I think it's Tim from IMX, where they're aiming to bring RWAs to the masses starting in Europe. So maybe as they get things fired up and things ramped up there could potentially be a collaboration or an expansion into new markets once you guys have done a lot of the heavy lifting with the Nairobi Stock Exchange. So again, I wish you all the best of luck. This is the very first time that we're having this particular round. I'm going to be trying to follow up with a lot of the other proposees to sort of get their takes on what they're proposing as well. But it's really exciting to see that, Project Catalyst has listened to the community, and they've created this just for, again, expanding Cardano's reach in the traditional or Web2 space. So on that note, Greg, I know this has been an awesome chat here. We are getting to the 30-minute mark. I'd like to maybe just ask for any sort of closing thoughts, key takeaways that you'd like to mention to the community, either about this proposal or anything else that we've discussed beforehand.
Yeah. So, you touched briefly on the partnership recently in Argentina, and I think it's no surprise that Cardano has seen most of its traction within emerging markets. Having grown up in South Africa, and now I'm living in the Netherlands, it's interesting. I can understand why often people don't see the use case for blockchain solutions in developed markets, because things largely work quite smoothly, right? Growing up in developing markets, that's a far bigger challenge. It's a far bigger reality. But what it does provide is an opportunity where when you do have thought leaders and people who are trying to move the needle to leapfrog into new technology, and we're starting to really see that, where well-connected, smart people who have gotten into the correct roles in Argentina, in Kenya, even when we signed our deal in Mozambique, the local mayor there are really exploring what can this Web3 blockchain future, how can it lift our country out of being a developing to a developed status. I think it's a really exciting time to be part of the Cardano ecosystem. I think here we have an opportunity to really prove that the kind of mission, which was help the financially excluded, empower those in the African continent, unlock all this potential using blockchain technology. I think this is a great opportunity to showcase that, and I'm thinking positively and hoping that we get the Catalyst support and we can become just one example of many that showcase that Cardano isn't this ghost chain with nothing going on, but is actually a piece of technology empowering one of Africa's largest stock exchanges, delivering value in Argentina, and I mean, the list goes on and on.
Thank you, Greg. I really do appreciate that. And I think it's just a matter of time before we really begin to see the narrative shifting around Cardano and the fact that it's obviously not a ghost chain, right? Again, I think if you open your eyes and you want to see the value that's here, you'll be able to see that relatively quickly. If you don't want to see that, if you want to ignore that, you can also do the same. So, of course, again, I do appreciate your time. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Greg Schneider here, COO for Empowa. Again, please make sure to go ahead and check out the links down below for their Catalyst funding round number 12 proposal. All the details will be left down there. If you guys have any questions for us as it pertains to today's conversation, whether it's about the Catalyst proposal, the collateral NFT, or just what Empowa does, please make sure to leave a comment down below. Again, make sure to check out that initial interview. A lot of really good information there coming in from Greg as well. That'll do it here for today's video, getting an update on Empowa. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by and you want more information surrounding the top builders here in Cardano, consider subscribing to Dapp Central. And last but not least, if you have any questions or comments or just want to share your opinion, right, then make sure to leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, we'll see you guys in the next video.